The New York Islanders won their second straight game Saturday. We'll talk about what they did right, plus the goaltending still needs fixing. All of that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey, and we have got a lot to discuss. The Islanders score a big comeback win over the Ottawa Senators. That's 2 in a row. We'll have our key takeaways from the game, our hero and go to the game. Plus, we got to figure out what's going on with Ilya Sorokin and whether or not the Islanders can fix that. And Matthew Schaefer just keeps on ticking. We'll talk about his strong play and some of the good and bad we've seen from him. All that and a lot more coming up on today's show. So it wasn't pretty, but the Islanders certainly did pull off a big 5-4 win over the Ottawa Senators Saturday late afternoon. And look, the Islanders winning a matinee game is a little bit rare, and we'll take that for sure. And there were some really good things to come out of this game, and obviously also some things that have Islander fans very concerned. And, let's start with the best part, right? And that has to be the game-winning goal. Anders Lee really doing a good job in this game, getting the game winner, and the Islanders needed that so badly. Lee ends up with, a multiple point game, and it was huge that he got that game winner with a little over a minute to go. A beautiful play where he literally did a spinorama just outside the crease and scores the game winner. Islanders go on to win the game 5-4. And the thing I loved about this, everydayers will recall Friday's show talking about, the Islanders need more from their captain. They need leadership. They need him to play better on the ice. Lee did not have a good first 3 or 4 games of this season, but boy, did he show up against Ottawa, and finishing it off with that goal was just perfect. That's what you need from your captain. You need timely scoring, you need leadership, you need a clutch performance, and they got that from Anders Lee Saturday afternoon. So very good to see that. The other thing I really liked in this game was the Islanders' resilience. And, they fall behind 2-0 early in the second period, and you begin to think, here we go again. The win against Edmonton was just a fluke. We're back to playing bad hockey, etc., etc. But the Islanders answered, and less than a minute and a half after the goal that made it 2-0, Emil Heineman makes it 2-1, and then Bo Horvat ties it 3 minutes after that. So you see this team bounce back, and again, they fall behind 3-2. They end up tying it 3-3, and then you get the win 5-4. So it was just good persistence by this team. And the persistence is important. And I'll tell you why. The persistence is important because it shows that Patrick Waugh has not lost the locker room. And that's important. I mean, you get off to the 0-3 start, and it's not just losing the first 3 games. It's the way they lost the first 3 games, how poorly they played overall, all the same problems that we've seen on this team for too long. And look, to a point, that makes sense because the roster, while there are some changes, we're still early in this retool. And as I've said, it's going to take time to dig out of the hole that Lou Lamoriello left this franchise in. But the persistence shows me that this team is still playing hard. They're still fighting. They are not going to give up on this season. And that is huge. So good to see the resilience, the stick-to-itness, and good to see the Islanders get the come-from-behind road victory. And you look at these 2 games, they beat 2 playoff quality teams, including a team that went to the Stanley Cup final in each of the last 2 years. And that's important too, to raise your game against an opponent that is considered better than you are. That's something that is vital to long-term success for this team. And that was great to see. That being said, there are, still some issues that this team needs to figure out. And whether or not they'll, be able to clean these things up, well, we're going to have to see. And, unfortunately, it's still special teams being a big issue. The Senators scoring a power play goal, the first goal of the game, definitely an issue. The penalty kill remains, not as good as it should be. And the power play, again, for the Islanders does not get a goal. But, I'm sort of encouraged and discouraged at the same time. It's encouraging because I do see better puck movement. I do see quicker puck movement. And I think Matthew Schaefer does have something to do with that. And I think Tony DeAngelo, as, flawed of a player as he is defensively, I think he's an upgrade at running the power play over Noah Dobson. And I think Schaefer is an upgrade over Noah Dobson, even at this early stage in his career. Dobson, a good skater. Dobson, had good passing ability, but his vision and his decisiveness at running the power play, what we're seeing now with Schaefer and DeAngelo being the power play quarterback, is not only is the puck moving faster, but they are able to get the players themselves to move more without the puck. And that's how you get penalty killers tired. That's how you get penalty killers out of position. And so while the power play is not necessarily resulting in goals consistently, they're doing things better. And I think you get a little more chemistry going. You get a little bit more of the roles being a little more defined offensively on the penalty kill. And you just sort of get used to the guys who you're playing with. And I think, I'm not saying the Islanders will have this elite power play, look out, Wayne Gretzky era Oilers. No, this team still lacks enough finishers to be a consistently great offensive team. But improvement over 31st in the league? Absolutely. Creating more chances, being more entertaining while you're doing it? Absolutely. So some definite progress being made there with the man advantage. And then one other thing I wanted to touch on, that delay of game penalty against the Islanders. I don't ever recall seeing anything like that before. And, that one was a little like, what the heck is that? Now, the Islanders did manage to kill that off, but I've seen a lot of strange calls, but that one was very unusual. Hero and go to the game. I think the hero is easy. It's got to be Anders Lee. 2 goals, 3 points, game winner with a little more than a minute to go. shows the leadership. Andersley for sure. And then for the go to the game, I'm going with the team defense. Overall team defense, just not good enough. And, you've got to be better. You've got to just play sound, fundamental defense. And Ilya Sorokin faced 33 shots. That's not overly high number. It's a little higher than you'd like it. But then you look at the shot chart. Far too many high danger chances. And it just absolutely has to be cleaned up for this team to be able to win consistently, because let's face it, the Islanders won this game 5-4. But I'm willing to comfortably say that the number of games the Islanders score 5 or more goals in is going to be a lot less than half. And winning 5-4 is not going to be an easy thing for this team to duplicate on a consistent basis. 3-2, 2-1, maybe some 4-3s, okay, but you're not going to win too many. If you're getting into a track meet, if you're this Islanders team and you're in a track meet with Edmonton or Ottawa or most of the other teams in the NHL, your percentage chance of winning is less than 50-50. So they've got to clean up the team defense. And it's something that has been a problem in every game except one. And that was the win over Edmonton, where David Riddick played really well in goal, but the team played better in front of him as well. Talking about goaltending, what is going on with Ilya Sorokin? We'll talk about that, plus more on Matthew Schaefer. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, a defensive forward who was with the team in the late 80s through the early 90s. See if you can guess who that is. He's from St. Catherine, Ontario. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that helps bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. I love how using Monarch, if you and your significant other are sharing accounts, it helps keep both of you on the same page. And Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. So let's talk a little Ilya Sorokin. And Sorokin got his first win of the year against Ottawa, but he has given up 4 goals in each of his 4 starts, which is remarkably consistent, but not in a good way. The goals against average, 4.13. The save percentage, 861. Those are numbers that will put you at or near the bottom of the league. Now, okay, 4 games, not a representative sample size. You got to figure these numbers will get better the more games he gets into and, we get to the mean. But every game, see, the straight goals against average and save percentage are not great. They don't make me happy. But the way this team has struggled and the way Sorokin has struggled is disappointing. In every game he's played, he's had at least 1, sometimes 2, where you hear the broadcaster say, Ilya Sorokin wishes he could have that one back. You're darn right he did, because it was a soft goal. And those are going to happen, but they can't happen once a game for 4 straight games. And what we saw against Ottawa was at least the flip side of that, which is making important saves at important times. When there was a penalty shot, Shane Pinto had a penalty shot that probably should not have been a penalty shot because, clearly, if you look at that replay, Matthew Schaefer got the puck and the stick first, not the skate. But I understand why they made the call, even though the replay showed, you look at it fast, yes, it looked like it should have been a penalty shot, but slow-mo, no. But Sorokin made the stop on that penalty shot. He came up with some big saves against Ottawa, which he did not do very often in the first 3 games that he played. And I've said this before, everydayers will recall, sometimes it's not how many saves you make, but how and when. When your team makes a mistake, do you bail them out? On a breakaway, do you come up with the big save? Especially, let's say, if your team just scored a big goal a few seconds earlier. Timeliness, big saves, dramatic saves, all of these help create momentum and help create confidence that your team has in your goalie. And at least against Ottawa, while Sorokin did not play particularly well, he did come up with the timely save. And that was very important. And the Islanders really, really needed that. The defense is clearly not playing as well as it needs to. And it just has to be better. It has to be better. Here's the quote: "We gave up so many chances. We have to be better in front of him." And that's absolutely true. And, Sorokin basically said he's dealing with lapses. Small little bit moments is how he put it after the game on Saturday. And Patrick Waugh did basically say after David Riddick played Thursday that he got a little more hands-on with Sorokin. "Shame on me," Waugh said. "I should have done it before, but I always felt, hey, let the goalie coach do their thing. I think I have some things that I could share with him. I'm not going to help him on the technique side of the game, but I think that I could help him on the mental side of the game because my career was not just a Cinderella story. I had good games, but I also had some bad ones, so I feel like being able to share that with your goalies is something that hopefully can go a long way." And, a lot of fans are probably sitting there saying, what took him so long? Obviously, I get it. You don't want to step on your goalie's coach's toes, but you're Patrick Waugh. You're one of the best goaltenders in NHL history. You're in the Hall of Fame. You've been through all the things that goalies have gone through. Share some of that wisdom, even if you don't want to talk about technique. Share some of that psychological experiences that you've had that helped you during your Hall of Fame career, and share that wisdom because you've learned a lot, and that's important. So look, it's a concern. Is Ilya Sorokin hiding an injury or anything like that? He has not said anything. The team has not said anything. And unless I hear otherwise, I don't believe that. Am I concerned right now that he's played 4 out of the first 5 games? A little. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not Patrick Waugh comes back with Sorokin against San Jose, or he says, you know what, the Sharks, no disrespect to the Sharks, they are improving, but they are still considered one of the lesser teams in the league, or expected to be one of the lesser teams in the league this year. Do you say, okay, this is where we go with Riddick, and then we are ready to have Sorokin start the next 2 or 3 or whatever it is? That's an interesting decision. But If the Islanders hope to contend in any reasonable way, shape, or form for a playoff berth, Ilya Sorokin has got to play better than he's playing. And, his angles haven't always been good. He's been a little not aggressive enough, too far back in his net at times. Other times he's been a little too aggressive, and he's just letting in these soft goals, 5-hole goals that squirt through, and goals under, low glove side. There are too many things that just seem to be consistently going wrong for Ilya Sorokin. And the way this team is built, the lack of elite goal scorers on this roster, they will need to absolutely positively get better goaltending. And it starts with playing better in front of them, because no goalie in this league, or very few goalies, depending on the updated stats at the end of the day, but Sorokin's facing more high danger chances than almost anybody. And if you look at the shot chart again from Ottawa, so many high danger chances, rebounds, shots from in close, opportunities because the team is not slowing down opponents in the neutral zone, where they come in with speed and space and momentum. There are too many mistakes, and it's like there's opposite problems. Tony DeAngelo, not great defensively. Scott Mayfield, Adam Pelech, Ryan Pollock, not as quick a foot than some of the players they're trying to keep up with. Matthew Schaefer, not as big physically, and I don't mean height. I'm talking about bulk, and very inexperienced, going to have his share of mistakes in the defensive zone. So you got to figure this out. And Alexander Romanov, by the way, missed this game with an upper body injury. We'll keep an eye on his status. But Boqvist comes in, plays pretty well, does, okay, I guess. But, boy, oh boy, this defense just needs to be better. So Sorokin needs to be better. The team needs to be better. The forwards also have to back check more effectively. There's got to be better communication out there. It's early in the season. It is too soon to panic. But am I concerned? Yes, because if Ilya Sorokin doesn't play well consistently over the course of this season, they're not going to even threaten to make the playoffs this year. All right, more to get to on today's show. How can we not talk about Matthew Schaefer? Points in 5 consecutive games. We'll talk about what he's doing well, what he's not doing well, and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays to increase my odds. I've tried player props and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Again, place that first $5 bet. If you win, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Go to FanDuel.com and check it out today. Matthew Schaefer just keeps impressing. And I'm not going to sit here and say his defense is flawless, because it's not. And I'm not going to tell you that he doesn't have things that he needs to learn, because he does. But he has an assist in the game against Ottawa, a primary assist, 2 block shots, 2 shots on goal, leads all Islanders defensemen with 22 and a half minutes of ice time. In fact, leads all Islanders players with 22 and a half minutes of ice time. And I think the thing I love the most about Schaefer, he ties Cale Makar of Colorado for the longest point streak by an NHL blue liner to start their career. 5 points in 5 games with exactly 1 point in each of the games. And it's just, the fact is that the things he's doing well are the things that I think will serve him well over the long haul. His skating is oh so impressive. But more than that, more than just being fast and being able to change directions and move around, he sees the ice so well. His hockey sense is amazing. Now, if he gets one more point Tuesday against San Jose, he will tie Marek Zidlicki's record with 6 points in his first 6 games. It's impressive. It is impressive. And just absolutely great to watch this kid play. Hopefully he learns a little bit more. He still does take a few too many chances offensively that leave him vulnerable defensively, but he's got the speed to catch up and get back in the play, and more than often than not he has. And he is he's flawed defensively at this stage in his career. Not going to win a lot of 50-50 puck battles along the boards if it's all muscle. But he sees the ice, he moves well, and he works at defense. He is not one of those players who is indifferent in his own zone. And that, the fact that he's coachable, the fact that he works on defense and cares about defense and sees the ice so well, you combine that with his speed and his hockey sense, and you, long term, I'm not worried about this kid's defense. Great to see Matthew Schaefer developing and doing his thing. And hopefully, and I'm not saying this is automatic by any way, shape, or form, but hopefully 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we'll all look back and say, hey, remember when Matthew Schaefer was just starting out and he did this, this, and this, and then he learned to do this, this. Like, we're going to look back at this year and say, wow, what a great start, but look at where he is. And I hope that is indeed the case. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. We're a day early here, but Tuesday will be the 58th birthday of former Islanders forward Bill Berg, the St. Catharines, Ontario native, a third-round pick of the Islanders in 1986 after playing for the Toronto Marlies, and made his NHL debut in the 88-89 season. Stayed with the Islanders through the 92-93 campaign when he was traded to Toronto, played for Toronto, played for the Rangers, finished his career in Ottawa, and played in 546 career NHL games, 55 goals, 122 points, 488 penalty minutes, add 3 goals and 7 points in 61 playoff games, none of those as a member of the New York Islanders. He was a checking forward, and a pretty good one. One of his better games as an Islander, October 20th, 1992, Islanders hosting the Flyers at the Nassau Coliseum. Stefan Beauregard, the goalie for Philadelphia, Glenn Healy for the Islanders. And our Islanders birthday of the day, Bill Berg opens the scoring with an even strength goal, unassisted, but just about 6 minutes into the game. That gives the New York Islanders a 1-0 lead, and they go on to win this game by a score of 4-3, 23 saves for Glenn Healy. Bill Berg with a goal on his only shot on goal, and it helped the Islanders to this win. Game-winning goal, by the way, Derek King with a little more than 5 minutes left. But Bill Berg, a guy who you had to watch to appreciate, but boy, was he a steady, smart defensive forward. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You could find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR-VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I'm live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road games. Join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We'll have our preview of tomorrow night's home game against the San Jose Sharks. Maybe we'll get an injury update on Alexander Romanov and a lot more. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.